All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome to another episode, another class, and I'm really excited for this visit for many reasons. We have Coach Ballgame with us, and for people who haven't seen his content yet, we'll get into it. It's really interesting, a different way of looking at how youth sports should be offered and how youth parents should be parenting or should be cheering at games, how coaches should be coaching at games. So I'm really interested and excited for a few reasons. I came across these videos last year when coaching my kids. And so I'm always trying to look for different ways to help the kids in different ways, possibly to keep myself in check, to make sure I'm not doing things that are being detrimental. So I'm really excited for this visit. So we'll go ahead and get started. Coach, thanks for joining us. Welcome to being a fan of Disney the podcast.
Honored. Thank you for having me. This is great, Cody.
So to get started, let's let's talk about where the kind of the emphasis or the origins of Coach Ballgame came from. Walk us through your excuse me, walk us through your history and how you came up with the idea.
I'm a small town Carolinian from North Carolina. Small house, big backyard. Mom, dad, and two older brothers. I always say, Mom taught us how to act right. Dad taught us how to laugh, and then my brothers taught me all the sports in the backyard. Baseball was one of them. I also love basketball, football, soccer, horseshoes. If it involved outdoors, I wanted to be a part of it. But there was this neighborhood sandlot game that we would play in our backyard with tennis balls almost every day. And so that was the genesis of this love of baseball and love of pickup baseball, aka Sandlot. Fast forward, Brown University was the place I went to college and played 4 years there. Was a captain, all Ivy, but my favorite record is the career hit by pitch record. I still hold that, very proud of that. And from there, I moved to California, and I really didn't know how I was going to make a living. I knew what I loved. I love baseball, but I didn't get drafted. Didn't get drafted into the major leagues, so that was that. I loved art. I loved creativity. I love poetry. I love music. I love storytelling. Um, and there was this job that my buddy, who I had played college baseball with, had started running youth baseball camps, and it was the first time I'd ever done this. But I was having fun and I was noticing, wait, I can marry all of these things I love. I can tell stories to these kids and they're engaged. I can be funny. I can write songs and it engages the kids. So that was 2005. But at no point did I say, well, this is how I'm going to make my living. But as the years progressed and I got married and started to have kids, I said, well, I need to feed these kids. I need to take care of my family, but I don't want to settle into a job that makes me miserable. So that's when Coach Ballgame was really born. We moved here to Orange County, California, and just started doing Coach Ballgame camps and after school sandlots, which is basically happy baseball. That led to a partnership with Major League Baseball, who now hires me on to coach camps with them. I'll be headed to the World Series at Dodger Stadium this weekend to coach a bunch of kids for play ball. And then as I started to go around the world and run these happy baseball sandlots, I started to notice, you know what? People are digging this. People love that baseball can be fun. It can be about character development in a world where it's gotten win at all costs in not just baseball but all youth sports. I kind of stuck out with my funny fedora hat that I wear and my drum that I play. and just this joyful vibe that I try to bring. A lot of parents and coaches have knocked on our door and said, "Hey, will you write a book, or will you create an online course, or will you answer these questions?" So the last few years, I've really leaned into that because my secret to the whole thing is we got to teach love of play to the next generation. But the secret to the secret is you got to teach parents and coaches how to create that love. So that's in a nutshell of James turning into Coach Ballgame over the course of almost 42 years now.
Well, thank you. And actually, the first video I think I saw of yours was about getting hit by a pitch because I have two boys. The youngest he's been playing up with his older brother for since we started playing. But last season he led the team in hit by pitches,
Yeah.
and
It's a
he's
very common thing, and it was the most common email I started to get. I did private lessons for a decade, and most of the kids would come and say, "Hey, I'm afraid of the ball. I'm afraid of a kid hitting me." And now, as I coach camps and I coach coaches, this is a lot of the emails that I get is my kid loves practice, but when it comes to kid pitch, they're
mhm,
jumping out of the box. They're very scared. So I've actually created a curriculum that I'm going to be dropping this winter with kind of a macro way of looking at it, and then a micro step by step how to go about it because it is very common. But ultimately, it's a life lesson you got to learn. How can
yeah,
we overcome fear? How can we overcome adversity? This is a big part of it. A side, I think a sidebar of this is I think the rules should be changed a little bit in youth baseball and even softball. If kids aren't quite ready to pitch and they're throwing a lot of wild pitches or they're hitting kids a lot, then let's throw a hybrid in there. Let's get some coaches out there side tossing so there's more baseball and less peers and wild pitches and track meets,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. So my so what I was gonna say, my youngest, I showed him that video and he loves it because that is, you said you're still proud to be the record holder for Brown University. He loves that. And this season, actually yesterday, his older brother got hit by a pitch. So he's now kind of the team leader this season. I think once he finds that out, I don't know. I'm afraid my youngest son might be trying to step into some pitches and get into some
Well,
trouble.
hey,
But
that's good. I think if coaches and adults can relate with kids and say, you know what, I've gone through this thing too. I was afraid of a ball, but I learned to get through it. And I actually learned, you know what, when I do get hit, it hurts for a minute, but by the time I get to first base, I've earned this respect from so many
yeah.
different people. So I'm glad that spoke to your son there. Hey, wear it with a badge of honor.
Yeah, and we actually we've shared that with multiple kids on the team. We had a situation in the spring season where a kid got hit and you could just tell from that point on it was just hard to stay in the box. And finally, I reached the point where I honestly didn't know what else to do. So I just pulled the kid aside and I said, "Look, dude, you've got the yips and you've got to work it out on your own and you will work it out. Like you'll get out of it." In the next game, he was not stepping out of the box. So
Yeah.
it just took me getting out of the way for him to for him to do it.
Oh, I mean, and there's a bigger theme here of allowing kids to fail and
Hmm.
allowing them to figure it out on their own. That's not a sign of weakness from a coach. A lot of times, if we micromanage or we pressure or we try and speed up this fit, it works against us. It's a
Yeah.
lose lose. So I think you really got to find how they respond. Find out what are these kids' love languages. Do they respond to prizes? Do they respond to me just saying, you know what, kid, you'll get through it, and I'm not gonna yell at you. I'm gonna allow you to figure this thing out. It seems like that was what that kid needed. Just needed an adult, a coach to say, it's okay. This is not
Yeah.
the end of the world. And if it's meant to be, you'll get through it. But this is not life or death. That I think a lot of youth coaches and parents, they get anxious, maybe because they're insecure, maybe because they really want the best for their child, or there's an embarrassment feeling. And then that turns into this micromanaging and this just being overbearing, when really all kids need is just a deep breath and a reminder that this isn't life or death. This is a game. And I always try and zoom out and say, hey, coaches, how many of these kids are going to make it to the major leagues? Probably zero, but they're all going to be adults one day. So, what an opportunity you have to empower these kids through these different life lessons, whether it's overcoming fear or being kind to a neighbor, or approaching an umpire that maybe made a bad call, but still being respectful and doing it in a way of dignity. These are life lessons that everybody needs. If they make it to the major leagues or the pros, well, that's amazing, but it's unlikely, like
Yeah.
very, very unlikely. So I try and zoom out and have other coaches do the same.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And that leads into the Sandlot and the Sandlot tours. Um, can you kind of tell us a little bit more about what the Sandlot tours are? Like this last summer, I followed what you where you were from time to time, and you were very, very busy. It seemed like sometimes every day, sometimes you might have a few days off here and there. So what are these Sandlot tours?
Well, I noticed early on in my coaching that there was this toxicity seeping into youth sports. I had a kid come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm going to quit baseball. My travel ball coach won't let me play soccer or basketball. I've got to play year-round baseball to secure my spot." And I said, "Well, that's ridiculous. How old are you?" He said, 7 years old. So I thought that was just a one off. That was just one coach that was really making it about themselves and super hyper focused. But I started getting more and more of those stories come. And I said, okay, there is a problem. There's a problem out here. We've got to educate, we got to equip these coaches and parents. So that's where this sandlot idea started. Let's create a separate version of Little League or Pony League or travel ball and just make it about joy, character development, and then the skills and the wins, well, they'll be a byproduct. But when you ask a high school or college coach, what are you looking for? They want a well rounded athlete, somebody who's played all the sports, and a person of high character. So that means you need to prioritize joy and character development at that young age. I didn't see that happening. So I started to go around to different cities, and it started with an act of kindness. This family reached out and and provided a grant of $20,000. They saw what I was doing during COVID with online material, and they saw my videos of how I make it really fun for the kids, and they raised money. And with that, we did our first Sandlot tour where we hit
Okay.
5 different cities. From that, we did 22 the following year. Last year, we did 60, and we've turned the volume down a bit this year and only done 50. But the idea is you gotta people need to see it. If people don't see something, a lot of times then it doesn't exist. But if they see 3 hours of this camp where these kids are smiling, jumping, yelling, laughing, having tons of fun, getting awarded for good choices, and then there's no scoreboards. The priority is uh, there's no scoreboards. The priority is not in winning or even skill development. That's down the priority list. Then they say, okay, this does exist. And what happens is the parents change their tune, and they're like, wait, I don't have to make these car rides miserable after the game. I don't have to micromanage and yell. I don't have to be negative. Um, and they start to realize, okay, so it doesn't have to be an either or. Either you're win at all cost or your participation trophy soft. No, it's got to be a both and. Let's make them a better human let's teach love of play. That way, when it does get really difficult and everybody's a little bit better than them, they love the game, so they'll show up early and stay late. And they've been taught to be a good person, so they'll want to overcome this adversity and treat people with respect. So that's the priority. It's a both and. We can try and win a game, but not at the cost of their love of play. So that's the message of Sandlot. And I've got a Google sheet of about 800 names of people that have reached out on an interest form. Hey, will you bring this thing to
Hmm.
our town? We want the leagues, we want all of our little league coaches to be educated. We want the parents to see this. We obviously want the kids to have a lifelong memory. So um, I hit Texas the middle of November for a little Texas swing, and then we'll be done for the year. And 2025 is right around the corner. But I'm excited that you can just tell more and more presidents of little leagues, coaches around the country, they're going, "Oh, that guy, I know that guy," and it's starting to you're starting to see a culture shift. I'm happy to be a small part of that.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the coolest, or one of the coolest videos from these Sandlot tours, is when you give them nicknames. All the kids are lined up, and one by one, they're running from home to first, and you're on your box, and you're pounding away, making noise, and giving them nicknames. So my question, one question as a youth coach is, are you coming up with all those nicknames? And second, how over the course of a 3 hour sandlot, are you able to make a connection, remember those nicknames you've given those kids, make a connection in that 3 hours? Because that's different than coaching 10 or 12 kids for a season where you see them, 30, 35 times between practices and games.
Yeah, well, I mean, nicknames is an old trick that I learned right at the beginning of my coaching career, where it's not about the nickname as much as building trust with the kid. That's where I build trust. I don't think I can challenge them to become a better player or a better person, or to listen or make good choices. I can't challenge them to do that unless they trust me first. So as soon as they arrive, I'm asking them their name, but more importantly, I'm asking them things about them. Hey, what's your favorite food?
Okay.
What's your favorite superhero? Favorite baseball player? Favorite thing to do? And based off that, we paint a picture of who they are, and that becomes their nickname. So they pick their nicknames. The way I can memorize it is I prioritize it. Two, I connect a story to a face. It's a lot easier to connect a story to a face than just a John or a
Hmm.
James or a Bill. So the story, ooh, that kid loves Disneyland. All right, so his nickname's Mickey Mouse. Boom, there's a connection there. And then repetition throughout the day. And yeah, it's very easy over a week of camp to memorize 100 or so. It's very easy over a season. But when I only have 3 hours with 100 kids, I've got to break it up into groups of 12, and I break the kids up at these sandlots into small groups by age, and I go around and I'll do the base running where I'm playing the drum and I'm having them run around the bases, and that's really where I can get the repetition. And I'll have them line up at home plate. I'll say, hey, you got to remind me this next time. I'm almost there, but not quite. So the repetition of them telling me their nickname and connecting that to the story and the face, I can usually get them all, which is great. But that's another aspect of it. When you can look at their face and know, oh yeah, they love peanut butter. That's why their nickname is PBJ. It makes them feel seen,
Yeah.
makes them feel special, and that's a huge part of coaching is building that trust and letting them know you're not going to force feed baseball knowledge down their throats. You're a human and you're treating them like a human. You respect them as a person. King Griffey Jr. taught me that. I met him and I said, what's your advice to me as a youth coach? He said, connect with your players. And so that's where the nicknames come in. And Yeah, that it's I've gotten to be known as the nickname guy, and proud of that.
Yeah.
Proud of it.
They're really really fun. Another really cool thing that happens at the tour or at these stops is um, what I think of as story time. It looks like maybe it's happening during like during snack whenever they're bringing whatever they have for that day. But you are able to tell, a pretty quick story in 5 or 10 minutes ish, to keep their attention. And the story I saw in particular was a story of Jim Abbott and meeting Jim Abbott, which I think is a great life story anyway. He was playing when I was growing up. He was somebody that was actively playing, and I mean because of his situation, he was a really really big character and a really really big name, between like me and my friends and everybody who knew him, or I'm sorry, everybody knew about him. Um, One really interesting thing is I watched the video you did where you're talking about Jim Abbott. I watched it to listen to the story myself, and then I watched it again. And instead of watching you the second time, I was looking around the crowd, and I saw very, very few kids that were not engaged. Like some of the kids that just, are just not interested, or they're turned around, they're not looking at you. How do you um how do you make sure that kids are engaged with you the whole time, and that they're able to pay attention, they're able to get the skills that you're teaching them, but also it's a lesson in respect as well. If someone's talking to you, it's good to, try to keep your eyes on them as best you can. Um, how do you do that? I mean, I'm sure a lot of that starts with building the trust and the nicknames and everything. But like, what's your process in getting kids to pay attention and stay engaged?
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's not a one-step process for sure. It's probably about 10 things that I try to get there. But the reason for the stories is because that's how I responded to life lessons as a kid. It wasn't by somebody telling me to do something. It was more of if they were able to paint a picture of a life lesson through a story. I was dialed in as a kid. So that's why I love telling stories to them. Just practical tricks of the trade. I'll change where I'm standing. I'll change the volume of how I'm speaking. Some kids respond to loud. Most kids respond to whisper or quiet. So I like to be as quiet as possible. If somebody's really dialed in and listening really quietly, I have baseball cards in my pocket that I'll dish out to them and say, "Hey, I want to praise you loudly with a baseball card. You're listening so well. You could probably retell this story to a kid later on today. Here's a King Griffey Jr. baseball card." And a lot of kids respond to that. As a young coach, I used to praise quietly and constructively criticize and
Hmm.
shame loudly. And that's not the way to go. I've learned the opposite. Dave Roberts, we had him on my podcast, and that's what he does at the highest level. You praise loudly, you constructively criticize quietly. So there might be the occasional unruly kid that I need an assistant coach to tap on the shoulder and say, "Hey, come with me." But for the most part, I've built up that trust with asking them questions about themselves, letting them know I'm a kind individual who wants to listen, and I try to listen to things that they say about them. So that's built. The award system is clear, where I'm awarding good choices. I'm awarding the kids that are listening and sitting quietly, and then just to engage them, I uh, I do things that rhyme, animal references. I'll throw some song at them and change the way I'm speaking, even to the point of changing accents, volume, whatever it might be. I was going to be a teacher, so I would always sit into different elementary school classes and watch these kindergarten teachers and first grade teachers. they're savants of getting kids to engage. So that's a great way to learn if you're a coach out there. See if you can sit into some of these classes and just watch how they work because it really is something. And then you can't make it about the one kid that's not paying attention. That I do prioritize it, and I kind of it hurts my feelings when a kid or a group of kids just isn't dialed into this Jim Abbott story. But I've learned I can't make it about them. I've got to just maybe walk to a different part of the group, or loudly reward somebody who is dialed in. That usually helps a lot more because some kids they don't listen the way other kids do.
Mhm.
Some kids listen by sitting there quietly and watching me with eye contact. Some kids, they need to be moving. They need to be walking to actually consume information. Every kid is a little bit different. You got to try and meet each kid on their own playing field. So I learned ooh, this kid needs to be in the back and just kind of pacing to be able to consume this, maybe with a coach beside them. So um, 20 years of doing it wrong and watching great mentors show me how they could light up faces and get kids to listen. But story time is definitely one of my favorite times, and I think the kids as well, because it's just a break from the norm. It's a break from the movement. It's a break from the activity or athleticism, and we get to just have a snack and hammer home a life lesson. So yeah, Roberto Clemente is a story I tell. Jim Abbott, Daniel Nava, Jackie Robinson, and many others. But yeah, that's my story. Sticking
Yeah.
to it.
The one thing that I think is really, really interesting, having coached youth sports for I coached them in baseball and soccer. Um, Probably this is our I think sixth year now. Um, is you mentioned it might hurt your feelings if somebody's not listening. And that resonates with me because from a parent perspective, um, you do have your coaches they're all parents. They're volunteering their time. And then, you have the parents that are bringing their kids every day to practice or to games and staying around for, getting there 30 minutes before the game and staying around afterwards when you're talking to them. I like to talk to the kids in baseball afterwards. I keep notes during the game that I like to try to go and tell each kid, hey, this is something important you did that, it may not have seemed important at that moment, but it's important because of what you were able to do. What from a from a parent's perspective, whether you're watching in the stands or whether you're the coach, how do you deal or how should you approach kind of dealing with the anxiety you get during a game as a parent watching your kid play? Um, and then we'll get into kind of the anxiety of from a coaching perspective, like wanting all the kids to be able to do things, but also wanting them to be competitive and everything. So let's start with how, as a parent, what's a good way to deal with the anxiety of watching your kid play so it comes out in a more positive way. It doesn't come out in the way that we've seen far too many negative episodes of.
Yeah, I did a post on this recently where I just asked the question, why do you get anxious at your kids' games? And the answers were in the thousands as far as the comment section on Instagram and Facebook, and it was a real eye opener for me because I can speak all day to how we're supposed to stay quiet and calm during the game. If there's any noise, it should happen after the fact, not while they're in the batter's box, not while they're about to pitch, but after they've hit the ball and gotten to first base, then a clap, then a attaboy or an attagirl. I can speak all day to the kids know when they did something wrong. You don't have to harp on it or make the car ride miserable and talk about all the things they did wrong afterwards. That they know that. I can talk all day about how they know it's a big moment. You don't need to remind them from the bleachers when they get into the batter's box, hey, this is a big moment. So I'm watching, so is everybody else. They know it's a big moment. My dad would sit behind the left field fence, Hawaiian shirt, keeping score. He would laugh at the 0 for 5. He would smile at the 5 for 5. He got the big picture, right? This day, this game is not the world. It is just one small step to getting where you want to get to. I think parents want so much for their kids that they have to cling to the fence, they have to micromanage, elbow up, bend the knees. Hello, or do it for your country. We're all watching. They're not trying to sabotage their own kid's life, but I can be that voice to say, love your energy. Thank you for being here, but you are sabotaging your kid's career. When they're constantly not matching up to your approval after a swing and a miss or a walk, they lose the love of the game pretty quickly, and they lose the love of conversating with you. So it
Hmm.
becomes this lose lose. You've got to be a supporter. Now, obviously, when it comes to character, respect, effort, those kind of things, that's what my parents, both my mom and dad, uh, they didn't play around with that. If I was disrespectful to an umpire, if I wasn't hustling, then I was they were going to let me know. But as far as the outcomes, their joy was detached from my outcome. So that would be my advice. Your joy needs to be detached from how
Hmm.
many hits they have that day or how many points they score on the basketball court. It's got to be detached. The best thing you can say is, I love watching you play the game, because they're going to perform at their best when they feel this freedom to fail. My daughter played in a game yesterday. We sat way out in the left field, behind the left field fence. We were there. She knew we were there. We were smiling, but there was no life or death moments here. We've worked, we've practiced. All the hard work and challenging should happen in practice. The game should be a birthday party. So let it rip and let them be afraid to let them have the freedom to fail, fall flat on their face, and that's when they're going to perform their best. As for a coach coaching your own kid, well, somebody's got to do it. So it might as well be you if you're a good coach. I know some parents don't want to coach because they just don't want to coach their own child. It's a very difficult thing to do. But the best thing you can do there is before games, ask your son or daughter, hey, what kind of fan do you need me to be for you today in the game? Do you like it when I clap? Do you like it when I talk when you get in the box? Do you like it when I holler? Do you like it when I'm quiet? We're both trying to get the same thing accomplished here. We want you to perform well and have a great time doing it so you'll want to come back next year. What kind of fan do you need me to be for you? So, in both instances, creating this two-way street where you're allowing them to tell you, hey, I perform better when this is happening. When mom is yelling in the bleachers, I get nervous, I get tense, right? And just be vulnerable and be willing to apologize when you overreact. A lot of times, that's the only time my oldest daughter will meet me halfway and submit to the things I'm wishing for is when I've become human and I've let her know, you know what, I'm flawed. I made a mistake. I overreacted. I acted out of anger. I'm sorry. Those are the moments when she'll say, "You know what? I could have done better, Dad. I could have hustled a little harder. I'll do better next time." So it's not weakness. It's not a sign of weakness when you apologize or when you're vulnerable or when you allow the kid to meet you halfway. You're empowering them. Um, Otherwise, it's just a lose lose where they're
Yeah.
going to lose the love of the game. I've seen it happen to friends I grew up with where they got to college. They were the best player on the team, but they hated baseball because they were challenged. Instead of this game being a game, as a kid, it was work. So by the time it actually mattered, when they were on TV, they just wanted to be a kid again. They were tired of this burnout. So You don't want that burnout thing to happen. And most importantly, you want them to want to hang out with you and be your best friend in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
So that's way more important than this 10U game that they're playing. So act accordingly.
And now a message from Cody's Inner Dialogue. Hey, Cody. Yeah, what's up, Inner Dialogue? I heard you were on the solo show. Yeah, I was. I was in the Tournament of Champions. It was a really good time. My episode that I was on was episode 168, but if anybody wants to listen to the full tournament, the first round was episode 166, the second round was 167, and then the tournament champion will be crowned in episode 169. It was a really good time. So, did you win your round? No, I didn't. I didn't win my round. I lost by 1 point. Oh, so you're not really a champion, huh? No, I mean, I was invited to be in the Tournament of Champions. It's a big deal to be invited. Everybody who was in the tournament is really, really knowledgeable about Disney. Yeah, but I mean, should you really host a Disney podcast if you can't win Disney trivia? No, as I said, everyone in the tournament was really, really knowledgeable. I did well. I had fun. I lost by 1 point, Inner Dialogue. And you know what? You wouldn't have done any better. I definitely would have done better. No, you wouldn't have. Give me a shot. Give me some questions. Oh, okay. You know what? Fine. Here are 3 questions about Disney characters. Are you ready? Ready. All right. Question number 1. This purple dragon with orange wings and orange horns was developed for an attraction at Epcot Center, and his motto is One Little Spark. Who is this Disney character? Oh, that's Elliot. No, it's not Elliot, it's Figment. Are you sure about that? Yes, I'm sure about that. Figment's my favorite character. You know that. No, I've never even heard of Figment. Inner Dialogue, you've heard of Figment. You know who Figment is, okay? Question number 2. You really should get this one based on your response to this last question. Okay, let's hear it. This is another colorful dragon who can appear when he wants to be seen and disappear when he doesn't want to be seen. Oh, that's Figment. No, that's Elliot. Who's Elliot? Who's Elliot? You just said Elliot. What do you... Oh my gosh. Elliot from Pete's Dragon? Come on, Inner Dialogue. Okay, you know what? Third question. Let's really try to hone it in. Let's try to finish on a positive note. Okay, are you ready? Ready. Okay, here we go. Question number 3. This frog... Got it? You got it. Okay. This frog takes you on a journey in his car where you drive through the streets of London and you drive merrily along. Who is this Disney character? Oh, that's Kermit the Frog. No, it's not Kermit the Frog. You sure about that? No, it's not Kermit the Frog. It's Mr. Toad. Who's Mr. Toad? You know who Mr. Toad is, okay? You know who Mr. Toad is. Inner Dialogue, this is another headache. Well, you know what? They're both amphibians, so I'll give myself a point for that. No, you don't get a point for that. You said the wrong name. See, you see how it's not as easy as it seems, is it? Whatever. I mean, those questions were... nobody would know those questions. Literally almost every Disney fan would know those questions, okay? Inner Dialogue. We've got to get back to the show. Again, for people who want to listen to the Tournament of Champions on the solo show, it's episodes 166, 167, 168, and then the Tournament Champion will be unveiled in episode 169. So, Inner Dialogue, thank you. This was a lot of fun. We've got to get back to the show. All right. Thanks, everybody. One thing that has always been interesting to me, because I try during a game to now, one, like I am the coach, so I have to, you know, elevate my voice so I'm heard out in right field and center field, and sometimes you're being loud. I'm trying to You try to find a blend of being able to be loud but not sounding like you're angry about
Yeah.
something. because I saw a video of yours that was really, really good and helps. I feel like your videos help to keep me in check a lot too, where you said, the players don't necessarily hear what you say as much as they see your reactions. So
Yeah. Your
that's
tone.
caused me, go ahead.
Tone and your body language are everything. It is. Especially in the heat of a game, the heat of the moment, the words you're saying, uh, that kind of goes in and out as there's way more things going on in their brain. But they do hear your tone, and if it's coming from a place of love, unconditional love, then you can be loud, but they hear it as just, oh, this coach loves me, and they want the best for me. But if you're coming from a place of anger, they hear that and they go into the fetal position and think, oh, my coach hates me. Same with your body language, right? The way you react when a kid swings and misses from the third base box, that is huge. The tension in your shoulders, the way you're pacing, your hands, all of that, it means a lot. So try to stay calm, try to stay relaxed, and just with the way you smile, with the way your body is, not only are you telling that kid it's okay to fail. This is kind of how we learn. We learn by failing. We're going to win or we're going to learn, and I'm cool with both of it. You're also teaching the coach on the other side that's full of anxiety and full of toxicity, and all the parents that are toxic and tense. You're putting a rock in their shoe and you're going, why is he so relaxed? Does he not care? No, you care, but you care about the right things. You care about the big picture. You're playing the long game here. So tone and body language greater than the words.
Yeah, yeah. And so in those situations where, because everybody's had them from time to time, I've had them where you do overreact and you get upset at an umpire because of a call you don't think they should have made, or and then you end up, you end up in a situation that you might say something or you might have the wrong body language for 10 seconds or so, and immediately that human nature, the reaction to that is embarrassment. And I remember in particular one game where I was upset and I was anxious, and I could then the kids became anxious. And at one point I had to stop myself with the help of my wife, um, and say, look, kids, like I've overreacted. I'm sorry for that. I talked to the parents afterwards and I said, you just need to relax and play. Don't like let me be nervous about the things that I don't want you to be nervous about. And after I said that, it just they flipped the script and it was they were having a lot more fun. In that moment, it was difficult for me to admit that I was having more fun. So
It's
how do you
powerful. I'll just hit that note real quick. It's super powerful. They'll never forget that apology. Those kids. This grown man is being vulnerable and taking his bulletproof vest off and taking his Superman cape off, and he's just saying, you know what? I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Super powerful. They'll never forget it, and they'll go to bat for you. They'll go to battle for you more, knowing that you're human and you're on their side. So good on you.
Oh, well, thank you. How do you deal with that aftermath of, yes, you talk to the kids and you can apologize and you talk to the parents, but that internal feeling of, oh, I just said something that I didn't like mean to say around other parents, or I didn't mean to say at this game, like other people can hear what I'm saying. How have you dealt with that in the past in those situations where maybe you have reacted in a way you shouldn't have?
Yeah, it still happens. I've been doing this 20 years, but every day there's a moment where it's like, did I go too far there? Was I too firm? Did I meet that kid on their playing field? Did I overreact? Happens in parenting all the time as well. And being a husband, it's just, it's part of life. But I can't go to bed without um, looking in the mirror and saying, you messed up, you're human, you got to let some other people know you're sorry. So I've learned to be, if it's quick to anger, as quick as I can to the apology. If it's to an umpire, by the end of the game, I'm going up to him. I'm throwing a handshake and I'm saying, thank you for being here. You're volunteering your time. You're getting paid peanuts to be here. And I I I acted out of anger. I have some anxiety built up from other parts of my life, and I put it out on you. If you can just say that, and I do, I try to apologize and get things out in the open. There's a stigma where guys aren't supposed to share their feelings, or if it's weird, or if it's awkward, or if it could cause some sort of friction, let's kick it under the rug and not mess with it. No, man, lead by example. Show these kids, and even the other parents. Yeah, it's cooler to own up to your faults and apologize when need be. So I try to be quick to the apology there. I immediately feel a sense of shame or guilt when I know I've crossed the line. And I've either got to go to that kid and say, I messed up and I'm sorry. Or it might need to be to the whole group as well. But
Yeah.
if I'm sensitive to how the kids are responding to how I'm talking, I can tell, ooh, this was okay for 9 of them, but these two, they didn't dig that. I need to go and have a one-on-one and apologize to them personally. It just when your priorities are in the right place, which is big picture, long game, can we make these kids want to come back next year because I'm the fun coach? Then you'll notice the kid that's feeling outcast. Same with bullying. You know, if your priorities are on the win, you're going to overlook the kid that's getting bullied by the others. So get your priorities straight. That way, nothing slides past your radar.
What the the next thing on from a Sandlot perspective on that discussion is like you go to a Sandlot event or you go to a camp, and as a parent, um as soon as it happens, as soon as you leave, excuse me, you start talking about all the good things that you learned. How do you have you talked to people that have told you how they can keep that going in the month that follows, or the recreational season that follows, or even the competitive travel ball season that follows? How are people able to I guess kind of manage themselves to keep the lessons that they have learned as parents also going into the future?
Yeah, well, that's why I created a few different buckets. I created this online course, which I'm relaunching next week, where it is 6 hours of Zooms and 50 PDFs, just to keep you on track as you try and coach your next team. I just finished a book, so look out for that. Obviously, all my social media posts, I'm always trying to solve a problem each day. So I tell the coaches, hey, keep this fuel going. Watch these daily videos of things that might help you, and then the podcast, Talking Shop podcast. That's me and two of my mentors, and we just talk about this every week. We talk, how do we make youth coaches better? How do we make youth sports better? And so we're constantly answering questions that come through my email or direct messages on this podcast. So that's the Talk and Shop pod, but that's weekly food that a lot of coaches on their way to the field, they'll listen to it sometimes with their kids as well, just to go, oh, that's going to be a great thing to. I remember that he did that at our Sandlot weeks ago, but I forgot about it. So I'm always trying to create content that you can just keep building to your tool pouch. So That's that. Follow along.
The the book that you mentioned, I actually saw a video you did where you read a segment of the book. And it was about an audition you went on when you used the wrong name for somebody. Um and so what's the name of that book? When does it come out? Where will it be
Yeah,
available?
it's called Coach Ballgame, My Coaching Pillars and How I Got There. And it's I'd say 80% a coach's handbook, and then 20% memoir, where I really kind of spliced in stories that taught me life lessons, mentors, coaches, teachers, major league players that I've met that have helped me create my pillars of coaching. So right now, the second draft is done, and we're gonna self-publish it. We're working with our graphic designer now to get some graphics going. So I can't put a specific date on it, but we're getting it out there as fast as we can because it's been about 5 years of kind of putting all my memories down onto paper, and then yeah, it's for the mom, the dad out there that wants to become a better parent, better coach, and then just the why. Like, why do I prioritize joy? Why character development? Why do I have a drum? Why do I do the things I do? So it was time. I had enough gray hairs in my beard to go. I can write a book. It's time. So yeah, all I can say is look out for that. But I needed to create the online course curriculum first. That way I wasn't writing two books at one time. So
Yeah.
I've created the playbook, which is how do you wrangle kids? How do you engage? How do you build trust? How do you run practices? How do you teach skills in a memorable way? How do you be a great coach? And then this book is just more of a sit on the couch and read it and maybe highlight a few things. So yeah, as soon as we can get it out, I'll post it all over the socials.
The I can't wait to see it. And and read that, read through, see like your story, but also what you tell parents and what you tell youth coaches and everything as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Another thing that we did a few I don't know, maybe a month ago, when the movie Rally Caps was available on when it became available on Apple, I bought that and we watched it. And it's a really really cool movie. It's a really wholesome movie. It's really good for watching with our kids because I realized that one thing I did at the end of last spring season is the kids played really well. They were actually we were the Dodgers in the spring. So we started paying attention more to the Los Angeles Dodgers, which is really cool now that, they're going to be playing in the World Series as well. So it's kind of been this whole summer long thing that they've been able to keep up with what Shohei's doing and Mookie Betts are doing. Like that's been really fun. Um, but one thing I did in the spring after the season was over, they won their postseason tournament. Um, and I wrote a short story about it, like kind of going like game by game, if you will. And I did it as much for myself as I did for them because I said, in a way, it for someone in their 40s, it should feel a little silly that, you want to remember what this 10U baseball team did. But the truth is, as I continue to age and as I start to forget things, I do want to remember that because I don't want to, it wasn't the scores, it wasn't the games, it was the talking to the kids throughout the season and being able to like see the progress that they made and everything. And so, but I would read that at night to the boys, and we would read like a chapter or maybe a couple chapters because they were usually like a chapter on a game or maybe two or three games a chapter or whatever. Um, and so after that, it really hit me that, for them, it's fun to watch Major League Baseball. It's fun to watch high school and college, but this is the world they are living in right now. This is the world they're competing in right now. And a movie like Rally Caps, I think tells a really, really good story of being able to have fun, being able to overcome adversity. How did that movie come about?
Well, I moved to California to be an actor and a writer, and so that was 20 years ago now, and I pounded the pavement for a while, and I was in different acting classes, and there was a friend from one of those classes that called me up and said, "Hey, I know you haven't acted in a decade, but there's this script and there's this role that I think you'd be right for. Can I put you in touch with the director?" Lee Chipola. And so got in contact with him. And the role of Jerry Nathan in the movie Rally Caps was just one line in the initial script. But this guy had seen what I was putting out on the social media and was like, let's make your character bigger. Would you have a few weeks to be able to go to upstate New York and film this? And at the moment, I didn't feel like I could do it. I couldn't leave my family for weeks at a time, and financially, I didn't think it would work. But me and my wife sat down. We're like, this thing's going to last forever. We can handle 3 weeks. Go do this thing, and I'm so glad I did because it turned out to be a great movie. And the Coach Ballgame message is all over it. And I've had lots of friends and family members enjoy it and watch it and say the same thing. So the fact that a great movie about so many different themes. I mean, it'll make you laugh, make you cry, all of it. But to have me play myself, basically, and what I tell all my friends is I was just method acting for a decade. I've just been preparing for this role for a decade, but just a great time and great to get back into that. I never lost the love of art and creativity and acting, and so being able to come full circle with that and put out a great movie with great actors like Judd Hirsch and Amy Smart, um, fired up about it. So more good news to come in the week about that movie, and I can't share it now, but go watch it. Rally Caps. It's a good one for the whole fam.
And it's really, really, I mean, it's just really, really fun. And like I said, it's a movie that everybody can watch. It's a movie that if you have kids playing youth sports right now, you can relate to, everybody can relate to, but also if from the past, if your kids are grown and but you can remember those things, you can relate to them. One thing you said your Coach Ballgame character kind of became much, much larger in that movie. Um, I got to be honest, when I was watching it, it almost seemed like the movie is based around this group of kids, but it almost seemed like you had a lot to do with the way that movie was written because of your character, because of the
Yeah.
presence of. So did
Well, thank
you?
you. Yeah, a lot of discussions were had
Okay.
while the writer and director was still doing drafts of the script. And he'd say, you know what, I love the way you do this. Let's put this into the film. Let's make this a scene. So, uh, you know, he's a professional writer and Hollywood director, but he's not a professional youth coach. So there were ideas that he got from me that made his script better. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And so, no doubt about it, I was able to implement things that moved the story along. And I enjoyed that part because not just being an actor, but a writer as well. I love all of it, the in front of the camera and behind the scenes. So that was a lot of fun, just having conversations with him to build this story.
So one scene in particular that when I watched it, it kind of surprised me, and then afterwards, sitting with it for a little bit, uh, kind of that second layer of understanding kind of came about and everything. Um, but in the movie, there's a baseball game at the end of this camp. Your character is calling the baseball game from the announcer's booth, but then you end up coming out of the announcer's booth and you end up going onto the field and getting in a yelling match with the umpire. And then at the end, you let out this really, really loud yell. And I remember when that happened, everybody in my house started laughing. Um, and then you give a little smile and a nod to the pitcher when you're walking off. Um, where did, in particular, where did that scene in particular come from?
Yeah, I honestly, as a as a guy who likes to respect umpires, I took issue with the scene when the writer wrote it. He was so excited about this scene and this guy Jerry Nathan, the camp counselor, coming down and having an argument with the umpire. That I was like, well, it seems a little off for Coach Ballgame to yeah, he's the guy who preaches be respectful and be calm, don't do this, and he's getting kicked out. But to save the scene afterwards, you see him smile at the pitcher and wink. And it what it did was it kind of saved me and it allowed me to kind of be that coach. I'm trying to get coaches to not be for a second and let out all that anger and then go, wait a second, he's doing this for this one kid. He knows that this kid, this is his love language. He needs somebody to have his back and fight for him. And to be able to do that, I think everybody could relate to it. And the writer was like, "It's going to work. I promise. It's going to be great." And I was like, "Okay, I trust you." So there was some trust involved there, but it ends up being one of the biggest laughs of the movie, indeed. And I think it all comes back to just this grown man, my character. Wasn't going to allow anything to get in the way of him letting this kid know I've got you, I've got your back, and I don't think anybody took it as oh, so it is okay to yell at
Yeah.
umpires. No, it wasn't about that whatsoever. So that came out as comical and all was well. But yeah, that was a very fun scene to film because it is so anti my nature.
Well, and for people who are just watching the movie and don't know your content, it may not, it may just I think it strikes them a little bit different than
Yeah.
like for me, having watched a lot of your content by the time I watched the movie, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. In the beginning, I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. And then about halfway through the scene, I'm like, okay, okay, so Coach Ballgame has done content on how you should react as a parent. When you're dealing with that anxiety, how you react as a coach. And then that was that second level of understanding a little bit. And then afterwards, when you kind of give the nod and the smile, then it did at that point reminded me, I'm like, yes, he's doing this in a comical way. And the lasting impression of for me of that scene was it was a good way to sort of show people watching the movie that have probably felt that way before. I don't know a youth parent who's watched a game who has not felt such anxiety that they would have done something that they would have yelled at an umpire and embarrassed themselves. That to me, kind of sitting with it a little bit, I'm like, what's really cool about that is someone whose content is all about, let's be more positive and let's try to make it more fun. People being able to see that person be vulnerable in a situation where they kind of it seemingly lose it for a little bit, and then by the end of the scene, you realize, okay, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
Um,
No, you're right. I love that you saw it that way, and I know for my following, being able to say, okay, so he does get angry sometimes, or he can relate to the way I feel. I think that was a big part of the scene there for people that do follow what I teach. But yeah, ultimately, I think everybody knows that with art, there's a medium there, and I was able to kind of go outside the James Lowe Coach Ballgame world for a little bit to get a point across and to get the scene where it needs to be. But I think for my following, they knew that that wink meant, sorry, I reacted that way, umpire. That was out of character. There's a bigger mission here.
and now a message from Cody's Inner Dialogue. Hey, Cody. Yeah, what's up, Inner Dialogue? Hey, I know you were upset with me about the logo changes. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was pretty upset with you. Well, don't worry, I changed it back. You really changed it back this time? Yeah, it's back to the boring one. What? I mean, it's back to the original one, the one that you designed. Okay. Thank you. Please don't do that in the future. Yeah, sure. What do you want, Inner Dialogue? Well, you know how people keep requesting that I'm on the show more? Are you referring to the time you wrote fake reviews with people asking you to be on the show? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I remember that. Well, here are some guests you've had on the show that want me to be on the show more. Really? Yeah. I got two. Would you like to hear them? Oh, I would love to hear this Inner Dialogue. Okay, here's the first one of Stan Solo. Let's listen.
Hey, Cody, Stan Solo here from the Solo Show and the Grand Circle Tour podcast. I just finished listening to your latest podcast, and I have to say, I really enjoyed it. But truth be told, it's easy to see who the real star of the show is, and I think you know who I'm talking about. Yep, it's Inner Dialogue. He truly makes the podcast go from a 2 or 3-star podcast to like a 5-star podcast. Hey, that got me thinking, you know what you should do? You really should have Inner Dialogue on more often, and for like a much, much longer time. I think your listeners would love it.
So, what'd you think of that one? Well, that's interesting. You really got Stan on the show. Oh, okay. Yeah, I got one more. Here's Ryan Pacella. Let's give that one a listen.
Hey Cody, maybe you should listen to your inner dialogue a little bit more. Have him on the show because, we just did this whole episode about generational trauma and other topics. And the best way to really get into the guts of everything is to hear yourself think and feel into things. And, I think it would be really helpful for you in the show.
So what'd you think about that? It looks like I have fans on the show. Yeah, how did you get Ryan and Stan to do that? Oh, they just want me on the show more. They know I'm the creative genius behind all this. Inner Dialogue. This seems a little suspicious. Suspicious? No way. Yeah. Did you do anything to get them on the show? No. Inner Dialogue, you didn't pay them to do that, did you? No, I didn't pay them. I mean, you did. What? I mean, you haven't yet. You have to. No, that's not gonna happen at all. Inner Dialogue, stop. Ryan, Stan, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. No, please don't expect any payment coming. I can't believe, Inner Dialogue, I can't believe you did this. It's a pretty good one, huh? They really want him on the show. No, it doesn't seem like it. I'm sorry, everyone. Please remember, being a fan of Disney the book is available on Amazon. The Prospectus Files is available on Kindle Vella. Inner Dialogue, this is such a headache. I'm sorry, everyone. Back to our show. what's really cool by the end of the game, you're there's a really funny scene with when you're live streaming the game and
Hmm.
then the grandfather and mom are trying to figure out how to watch it on the television. And
Yeah.
it is what's so funny about that between Judd Hirsch and Amy Smart is I can't remember exactly what the comment was, but it's something like, I told you you should have done this to the internet, or I told you that. And I think at various points, all adults
Yeah.
have who, especially if we were alive before this just kind of huge advancement of technology and everything being streaming now and like everybody can understand that. Like so,
Oh, yeah.
um, so it's a really, really fun movie. I would definitely tell people to watch it, especially if you have kids who play youth sports, had kids who played youth sports. It's a really, really fun movie. It does what you said about your following and people saying, "Oh, he does get upset sometimes." That kind of takes us into the next portion that I wanted to talk about, which I'm thinking of as just kind of the state of youth sport in general. Since you mentioned that, let's go ahead and start there so I don't forget it. Um, how do you how do you react as James outside of Coach Ballgame when something happens and you get angry at, something that's happened during a game, something that's happened during a sandlot or during a camp, and you get angry about something, how do you use that to, or how do you turn that into something more constructive than just being angry and letting that emotion come out?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's natural wiring. I've always been the kid when boulders are falling from the sky. I don't immediately go, oh, woe is me. I think, how can I make this into something good? How can I turn this into a batting drill or something like that? So my wife is on the other side where more of a realistic way of looking at things. So I've always been optimistic, and I always really see the good in people and in things. So there is that. But as I've matured and grown, I think I've always been anxious. There's been an anxiety underneath everything that pushes me to do certain things or act out of anger or be too firm with my kids, overreact in some way. But actually, seeing how people react at youth sports events and how every single second is just sweat and tears and wishing and willing, I've been able to go, wow, that nothing good comes from that whatsoever. So just by watching, I've been able to go, oh, I need to step back even further, stay quiet, and just have this body language of unconditional love. So in my personal life, that's what I strive for. Well, when things make me angry, I try and calm that anxiety with, okay, this short term's gonna pass pretty quick. What's the long term? What's the long game? And a lot of that just means deep breaths. So I've learned how to deep breathe. I think that's a big one for me is 4 seconds in, breathe in through the nose, 6 out, and there's an immediate shift from short term anger to big picture
Mhm.
productivity. And I teach that to a lot of kids, and hopefully the parents hear it as well. But that when I feel anger towards something, I think whether it's breathing or whether it's just learning from mistakes my older brothers made, mistakes I've seen from others, and just knowledge mentors have shown me if you can take a few deep, long breaths and let this thing sit for a second, decompress, it's going to be a lot more clarity. So I guess to answer your question, when the anxiety button gets pushed, breathing is what comes next.
Yeah, thank you. So what do you just kind of to give us that 30,000 foot view, and then we'll narrow down what to you, what is the importance of youth sport and youth, like just physical activity in general at the youth level?
Yeah, I think kids learn more when they're active. So I think for me, life lessons. Loved my teachers, loved school, but I learned a lot more life lessons and a lot more about life in general on a field or on a basketball court. I think because I was engaged and I was moving. So I think you're creating core memories as a coach, and the good pictures get painted just as easily as the bad ones do. The bad ones can get painted really clearly in kids' brains as well. So I try and create as many good pictures in these kids' brains as possible that's going to make them a better human. Because I know that those core memories, those big life lessons, when they're in a dark moment, when they're a teenager, when they're going into college, when they're having a trouble in their relationship, they're going to lean on that life lesson that a coach taught them. They're going to think about that coach that made them laugh after a 0 for 4 day. And they're going to respond accordingly. So the ripple effect is huge. And so youth sports, I always tell coaches, it's the most thankless volunteer-based job you can have, but it might be the most important job you ever have because of the lives that you're changing. So there's the life lesson aspect of it. Obviously, the physical kids when they are moving, when they're exercising, their brains feel better. So there's mental wellness connected with the physical wellness. And then I would just say the joy factor when kids are outside with the vitamin D, when they're active and they're around other human beings, that social aspect is humongous. To be able to conversate, to be able to try to figure out a whether it's an argument or a difference. How can Benny the Jet Rodriguez get along with Smalls? Right? There's a big social aspect to sports that you might not get in other places, classrooms or what have you. So yeah, youth sports is a big deal, and I'm thinking about coaches right now from when I was 5, 6, 7 years old that either tied a shoe, laughed, taught me a life lesson as I struggle through life as an adult now.
Yeah. Well, and on that topic, what are who are some of the people that you look to, either that you've met, or maybe people that you've never met, but you have read about them, or you admired them in some way, that have helped you kind of become the person you are, become the coach that you are. And it could be in sport, outside of sport. I mean, you're heavily involved in the entertainment world as well. So outside of, anybody in sport, anybody in the creative arts, anybody in general business. Who are some of those people that you have learned a lot from?
Well, I'll start with Clemente. My grandfather introduced me to him, and Roberto Clemente has an award named after him for being selfless, just thinking of others and others that are in need. I can get pretty self-focused, whether that's my career or my life, and he really has taught me think about others first, especially people in need. How can you help them? So telling that story to every kid I meet is huge. We talked about Jim Abbott overcoming adversity. That is a big one. A guy with one arm who made it to major leagues and threw a no hitter. Are you kidding me? But I'm talking at a school tomorrow, and I'll tell those two stories. And being able to tell those stories with those themes to these kids that are in elementary and middle school, man, they might never forget that, and they might become a better person because of that. So those are two biggies. I've always loved Joe Madden. I read his book, how he can look at high leverage moments as a manager at the highest level, coaching the Cubs in a World Series, and just be able to have these these quotes in his brain: "Do simple better. Don't let the pressure exceed the pleasure." He's just always able to kind of calm things down in a huge moment. So he's a big influence, and obviously my mom and dad, just the way they approached parenting me in high leverage moments. There was no joy attached to my result. It was always character first and joy right there behind it. That way, this kid extends their career and learns more life lessons from that. So there you go.
Yeah, thank you. And one thing that you had mentioned earlier, or a video that I've seen when you're talking about at player evaluations, or when you're drafting players for your youth team, what what are some things that you look out for? And the things you talk about are how do they react after they make a mistake? How do they talk to other kids? And one of the things that you leave with is, if you have good kids on your team, good humans on your team, they probably have good parents. And those parents are less likely to you in saying, they're less likely to yell at you when you mess up, but they're more likely to be supportive of everyone on that team. And it reminded me, like, when we leave a game, um, my wife started it, and now my kids want to do it every game. That, like, they will ask, "What's the favorite thing from that game?" Or "What's the favorite thing I you saw me do from that game?" Or "What's the favorite thing you did in that game?" It reminds me of another parent who really did say, like, every game, "We love watching you play," and they would tell that to the the all the kids on the team. Just when the game would start, "Hey, we love watching you play. Doesn't really matter what you're doing out there." And so they're really, really cool ways to. There are some really good examples of people behaving the way that I think is appropriate for youth sport. What do you think? What are some of the biggest issues that you think need to be addressed in youth sport?
Yeah, I think communication with coach and parent is a big one. But before a coach can communicate, here's the priorities. We're not going to we're not going to focus on winning every single game. We're not going to micromanage these kids. We're not going to yell at umpires. We're not going to create this culture of toxicity and negativity. It's going to be one of positive. It's going to be uplifting. We're going to make these kids better fathers one day. Right? I mean, I think that's obvious. That's common sense. That's what youth sports should be all about. Is how do we make them a wonderful mother and father one day and a server of their community? But coaches have to communicate that with parents in a way where they'll listen. So I think a barbecue is huge. Before the season starts, before you send this email to all the parents letting them know this is how you should act during practices and games, have a barbecue and get to know all these parents. Build trust with them. Listen to their journey first. And then you can lay out a priority list of what should happen. Now, we have some coaches out there that don't look through that lens. They want to win that day. They're trying to steal the most bases, score the most runs, but there's no development happening. We're not actually teaching kids to drive in runs or play defense. So I think that's where parents can build trust with the coach, take him to coffee, take him for a cold beer or whatever it is you do, and say, hey, thank you for volunteering your time to coach my son. Now, here's what I'm noticing. He's losing his love of the game because it's so intense. Is there a way we can create a both and culture? So I think if parents and coaches can communicate in a healthy way, or instead of othering people and weaning out the folks that are not on your side, if we can come together and communicate, man, that's the culture you want. The way I build a culture at the end of practices is I bring the team together when the parents are all there picking up their kids, and I give out an award to the kid who made the best choices. This kid was kind. to kids that were down and out today. This kid hustled today. This kid has been listening so much, even listening to me when I coach other kids, and that's why they're improving. I want to give them a game ball or a special prize. That's a great way to build culture, but culture is what you tolerate, and culture is something you can set right away. But that all goes back to building trust first. Build trust with your players, build trust with those parents, and then as a coach, you can set this culture and parents in a way that's of class and dignity, in a way that the coaches are going to hear you. You can keep them accountable, but it can all be done with calm conversations over coffee. It doesn't have to be yelling matches.
Yeah. The at, where do you see the balance between youth sport being love of the game, and where do you see that balance, or when you shift into working with the kids on, yes, this is a competitive situation, even if it's in recreational play, you're in a competitive situation. And there are a lot of lessons you can learn from being in a competitive situation as well. Um, what do you think there's a certain age
Yeah.
where kids start to understand that more, or there should be more emphasis, not emphasis taking the place of the joy, but you should emphasize more, hey, this is what you need to be doing in these situations, and an age where like you've built that trust, and so you could tell a kid, hey, yeah, you made a mistake this game, and here's how you react to that, and here's
Yeah.
how we're going to get better with that. Where do you see that balance?
Yep. And this will have to be my last one. I got another meeting to get to. But for me, I think age 8 is a moment where you can start to sprinkle in this idea of hard work creates wins. And then again at age 10, and then again at age 12. There's some different phases. Once you get to the age of 12, a lot of the kids, they really love the game, and they're at a place where they could possibly want to play high school or college. I always say wins don't matter till you're on TV, but there's a way as a youth coach to start to sprinkle in these ideas. But at no point do I let the kids know how important winning is to me. I I just stress, if you happen to show up early and take a few more swings in the cage, if you happen to be that one staying a little bit late to take some more ground balls, man, that's a leader right there. And what happens is, by creating this culture of effort and good choices and being respectful and kind, I feel like the win is the byproduct. So you're teaching these kids to win without them realizing you're teaching them to win. I think that's the secret, because once you say we have to win this game, well, then there's this fear. There's this fear of failure that creeps in. So I don't think ultimatums are good. I don't think ultimatums are good for anybody. Think of pros when they're 0 for 20. Like, if they think about getting out that next at bat, they're going to get out. So you can't be afraid of these things. So at any age, I think the win has to be a byproduct, but you can start to teach life lessons of, hey, if we come together as a team, if we have each other's back, if we're working a little harder today than we did yesterday, this could lead to something really, really good. But I don't think they ever have to have a focus on how many games can we win or can we win today. Let that be a big byproduct of character, of joy, of movement, of skill development, of attitude, and then the win is a byproduct. So that would be my answer for that one.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And before we go, where can people follow you? Where can they see your content? Share that with people, please.
Well, at Coach Ballgame, pretty much everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube has a lot of long form, which we're trying to grow as well. So all of it at Coach Ballgame, but our main hub is my website, coachballgame.com. That's where you can get a link for my online course. That's where you'll be able to get my book when it comes out. So there you go. All things Coach Ballgame, and I appreciate you having me on, man. This has been fun.
Yeah, yeah, thank you so much. This has been really, really great. I've been looking forward to this a long time. I love your content. Love being able to talk through a few things and to try to help not only players, but try to help parents feel better about the experience as well. So I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Honored to be here. Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.